Hello. Well, it looks like summer has finally turned up for this 10-day trend as we move onto the southern side of the jet stream. So far in June, we've been on the northern side of the jet stream. That's the colder side, and that's why it has been quite cold for the time of year. But it has warmed up through this week, and that's because we are now on the southern side of the jet stream for the vast majority of the UK. It's a pretty meandering pattern. Here it is with the fast-moving arrows and the bright pink colours showing where it is strongest. And as the pattern has meandered, it's almost developed this cut-off section down to the south across parts of Europe, and that's been driving the very unsettled weather, the thunderstorms they've been seeing across northern Europe so far this week. And there is still a chance we could see some of that unsettled weather to end the week as weather fronts approach from the south and east. They could bring a glancing blow of a risk of thunderstorms through Thursday and into Friday for more southeastern areas, but in fact it's actually high pressure that is generally starting to dominate our weather. That's building in from the south and west through the rest of this week. But before we get there, it is a slower process. We've still got this extension of the jet stream bringing in some weather fronts from the west through Thursday and into Friday. So that will bring some unsettled weather to start the weekend. But as the weekend goes on, it will get warmer and more settled more widely across the UK. But let's have a look at this more unsettled weather for the first few days of this 10-day trend. So through Thursday, we've got a weak weather front across northwestern areas, so that will bring cloudier skies to these areas, but high pressures generally dominating elsewhere across the UK, and it's going to be feeling warmer, probably the warmer day of the week so far, with highs of around 24, possibly 25 degrees across the south and east. Now, these are the thunderstorms down to the south and east of the UK across parts of northern Europe that could start to approach through Thursday evening. These graphics won't show the risk of thunderstorms close enough to the UK, but there is a chance we could see some of that unsettled weather. But for most of us, it's likely to be another fairly bright day on Friday, another weather front arriving into the west, bringing a wetter day for Northern Ireland, possibly western Scotland, and into the far southwest of England later on in the day. But as that weather front does move eastwards through the day, it will become a much weaker feature. So we'll push through Friday and into Saturday, and that's as the jet stream still driving that. However, you can notice where we've got this strong pinks, that's a strong jet core. It's going to push up to the north of the UK as the weekend progresses, and that will allow this high pressure to the south to build in as the jet stream amplifies up around to the north of the UK. Well, it'll also allow that heat to build from the south across the UK, particularly across the southwest at first, but then that heat builds a bit more widely as we start the week next week. So certainly a settled and warm start to next week, but before then still those weather fronts and perhaps a risk of showers through Saturday. So sunshine and showers to come on Saturday. Still temperatures a little above average for most areas, with highs of around 23 or 24 degrees in the south and east, but a risk of some light showers, nothing heavy or thundery like we've seen earlier on in the week though. And then as we have a look further ahead into Sunday, there's another weak weather front bringing some cloudier skies, but that high pressure is really starting to fizzle away. Any weather fronts now moving in from the west by the time we get to Sunday. So we'll start to turn much warmer in any sunshine, and I think more widely you'll see temperatures above average. Let's have a look at how the temperatures are looking compared to average by the time we get to Sunday. So this is compared to the June's average for this time of year, where we've got those orangey colours. That's around 3 degrees above average, and the red colours somewhere between around 6 degrees above average. So it's particularly the south and east or central areas of England where it's going to be warmest, but further north extending into eastern areas of Scotland, it's going to be a few degrees above average as well. So temperatures climbing above the mid-20s by the time we get to Sunday, most likely. So how long is the heat going to last? Well, we're quite confident in the fact that it's going to stay warmer than average for at least the next 10 days. You can see that with the meteograms from ECMWF, that's the European model. We've got Reading on the top and Glasgow on the bottom. These are just examples of somewhere, a few different places across the country. And the reds are the maximum temperature. You can see that all of the reds by and large sit above this red line. That's the average for this time of year for both the north and the south. There is some part of this bar that does extend below the average, but generally the trend is for temperatures to become above average after a pretty cool start to June for the rest of June at least. However, certainty or confidence does decrease as time goes on. So the narrower the band, the more confident we are on that temperature of what it is. So you can see temperatures rising in both the north and the south, in both the south and the north, from about Sunday onwards to above average across the UK, and we've got high confidence that Tuesday and Wednesday will likely be above average. But then after you get to Wednesday or Thursday, those bars get much wider, and that just shows a growing or less confidence in exactly how warm it's going to be. There is a chance that temperatures could continue to climb even higher, or they're most likely going to stay around the same or get a little bit cooler, but still stay around average in both northern and southern areas. So this is the pressure pattern to start the week. So we've got a higher confidence in that more settled warm spell, at least to start the week next week. Or at least to start the week next week. The date's incorrect on there, but this is for the start of next week. We've got high pressure dominating across the UK, that's with the heat building as well, and that pressure pattern will likely just change a little bit as we head into the Tuesday the 25th of June. So the previous graphic was Monday the 24th of June. So then the high pressure is likely to shift just a little bit further east of the UK, and that will allow the winds to move in from more of a continental direction, and that's why temperatures will slowly start to rise through the beginning part of next week, because a continental direction, a big land mass at this time of year, as we're in the peak of summer, is a warm direction, and so temperatures will slowly start to pick up from the south and east through Tuesday. With high pressure still pretty centred across the UK, though, that will continue to mean that we've got that settled and dry weather quite widely across the UK. And so by Wednesday, we've then got that high pressure still situated slightly to the east of the UK, still this southeasterly feed, keeping temperatures above average. So how warm is it going to get to start next week? Well, this is the ensemble output from ECMWF. So this shows the probability of something happening. This is lots of different model runs, or one model run lots of different times, and the probability of certain outcomes calculated from that. So this is the probability chart. You can see along the bottom what the numbers are associated with. And here we have Wednesday on the left, and this is the chance of temperatures exceeding 25 degrees. So it's quite likely that we'll see 25 degrees for a large swathe of the southeast at least, potentially extending further north and east into parts of the Welsh borders towards the southwest, up towards northern England. It will likely be cooler than that across Northern Ireland and Scotland as well. So whether we're going to reach heatwave criteria, well, that will mean that you will need to reach heatwave criteria. You need to have a certain temperature for the appropriate threshold for a specific area to last for 3 days or more. So we could possibly start to see that by Wednesday. But if we have a look at what happens by the next day, by Thursday, this is also the chance of 25 degrees, but the probabilities are lower. We don't have as many of those higher probability colours anymore by Thursday, and that's where we're starting to lose that confidence. So there's definitely a chance that it could stay warm well into Thursday next week, into the start of Glastonbury, but there's also a chance it could get that much cooler. And that's because there is a shift in the position of that high pressure and uncertainty differences between different model runs on exactly where that high pressure is sitting at the moment. That's pretty normal for this time range for any weather forecast. But you can see that here. This is we call this the stacked probabilities. It's different types of weather regimes, low pressure or high pressure, and the different types of high pressure and low pressure colour coded here. So where the reds are, that shows higher pressure dominating. But when we've got different types of red, somewhere between that yellow and that darker red, it shows the varying chances of different types of higher pressures dominating. So from the start of next week, high pressure is definitely more likely than low pressure. It takes up more space than the blues. But as we head towards next weekend, it becomes equally likely that we start to see low pressure dominating. But between the beginning and the end of next week, we start to see different ratios of those reds showing the high pressure centred in slightly different areas. And that's going to mean different things depending on which outcome we would see across the UK. So let's have a look at what those different outcomes could be. Well, the most likely outcome in the most likely situation in all of these outcomes is the high pressure still centred out to the southwest. That's the Azores high. That's likely to stay to the south and west throughout. But it's how far that influence is extended. Now, in this scenario, this is currently the most likely scenario by the time we get to Friday, the 28th of June. That high pressure that had extended across the whole of the UK to start the week has kind of broken apart. We've got the Azores high, but then more of a Scandinavian high as well. And between that, low pressure's allowed to come in a little bit more to more northern areas. But that still allows a southeasterly feed. So you could start to see some even warmer air moving up from more of a southeasterly direction. It's even warmer when you pick up more of that southerly direction if that high pressure becomes more centred to allow that more southerly wind. But then you probably could start to see some unsettled weather moving in from the north and west in this situation. Another situation is that Azores high continues to be extended across the UK, and so similar conditions would likely continue throughout the rest of next week compared to the start of next week. So that it will continue to be fairly warm, settled, sunny and dry across the UK. Temperatures still just a bit above average, but not likely exceeding 30 degrees in this situation. Or that Azores high could be centred even further south, and that low pressure could be more dominant across the north of the UK, bringing more unsettled weather to more northern areas and more settled weather sat to the south of the UK with more of a westy direction. It's still a fairly cooler, higher pressure direction. So temperatures in this scenario also not exceeding anything exceptional for this time of year. So it's certainly set to turn settled and warmer as the weekend goes on and until into the start of next week, but quite how warm it will stay, it will get, and how settled it will stay, or how long it will stay settled for, well, those are the details that you will need to keep up with throughout the next few days, and you can do that by subscribing to our YouTube channel. See you again soon. Bye bye.